Sports Talk with Elite Wagers.
Yo. Welcome everyone to my new sports podcast, Sports Talk with Elite Wagers. Obviously, you know that I've been doing a podcast for the NFL season, NFL Talk with Elite Wagers. And again, obviously, the NFL season has now come to a close. And I was sort of rolling with the whole podcasting and doing this weekly, so I decided to keep it rolling. And I've decided to do a new podcast for a variety of different sports. So I'm obviously a sports bettor anyway, sports gambler, stat fanatic. I look into numerous different sports throughout every week, and I decided to keep it rolling with the podcast and share all my thoughts, opinions, analysis, stats, findings, everything like that with everyone that wants to listen from the old podcast and any new people coming in. I can hopefully share some new insights on some new sports or different opinions and views on games and things like that. So, we're keeping it rolling with the podcasting weekly, be every Friday as normal. And this week we've got a nice stacked card really for a normal week. We've got some football or some soccer, as the Americans call it. We've got some boxing as well. We've got a heavy boxing card this weekend as well. A little bit of UFC. We've got some esports in there as well. Hockey's just come back as well off the little international break they had. Obviously NBA coming back off the All-Star weekend as well. So we've got quite a lot to talk through from here on out. Obviously we've got MLB coming back as well in a couple of weeks. We've got a lot of things. Formula One as well. So I'll be going through all sorts of sports, and hopefully some new listeners and things like that can get some new insights on all these different sports that you wouldn't normally tend to gamble on. Just pretty much get into the first part of the new episode, and that's going to be with some football bets.
Football.
So getting into some football, a lot of teams have had a long rest period this week with it being a Champions League week. So only a few teams will play in Champions League week. Liverpool and Aston Villa already qualified for the knockout stages of the Champions League, and so they actually faced in the Premier League on Wednesday. And Man City were playing Real Madrid in the Champions League. So majority of teams will be rested this weekend. And obviously starting off the weekend with some football on a Saturday, early kickoff on a Saturday. These two teams, Bournemouth and Wolves, they will both be fully rested. They are two of the teams that didn't play midweek. And it'll feature two teams who are fighting for two different things this season. So Wolves, they are only 2 points above relegation. It's easy to see why. They've struggled a lot this season. They've won just 5 of the last 15 games. Of those 5 games, they've beaten Leicester, who are also in the relegation battle, Blackburn and Bristol City. They're both in the lower leagues. And a struggling Man United team as well. They also beat Aston Villa, who are obviously top of the league, but that's a derby game. So obviously a lot more goes into those derby games. They've only scored 35 goals this season, but they've conceded 54, which is one of the worst goal scoring record, in terms of scored to conceded ratios in the league. Wolves are yet to beat any team that sit inside the top 7 so far this year. One of those top 7 teams, more specifically sitting in 5th, is Bournemouth. They've been a complete shock this year. They've battled for a spot in next year's European competitions. Their form is really, really good recently. They lost just 1 of the last 15 games, with that one loss being to Liverpool. So that can't be too dejecting, losing against the top of the league. In 7 of the last 10 wins, they've won by 2 or more goals, which again shows how good they've been on attack this season. They've scored 44 goals this season, but have also been locked down on defence, conceding the 3rd lowest total in the Premier League with just 29. Only Liverpool and Arsenal concede less goals than Bournemouth this year. Bournemouth star Justin Kluivert finds himself inside the top 10 for goals this season as well, currently sitting there with 11 and 4 assists. But Bournemouth have a further 2 players in the top with 10 or more goal contributions as well, showcasing this team is really, really good at working as a team and not just as individuals. Bournemouth at home, they've been really, really solid. They've lost just 3 home games this season. They were to Liverpool, Chelsea and Brighton, which all 3 teams are in the top 7. whereas Wolves have only won 4 away games all year. And again, that was to Leicester, Bristol, Blackburn, all in the relegation battle or lower leagues. So for me, with this Bournemouth fine form and poor performances from Wolves, I expect Bournemouth to be able to dominate this game, and I believe they'll be able to win this by at least 2 goals. So the bet for me in this game is going to be Bournemouth moneyline and over 1.5 goals. That's going to take you to minus 115, which in my opinion is pretty good odds. And we'll go straight into the next game. When I bet on football, I tend to have a dog of the day. That's normally an underdog that will sort of has a very good chance of winning. Every week there's always sort of a shock team that will win, or at least make a top team struggle a little bit. And in my opinion, this is the game where we'll see the dog of the day. So it wouldn't be a normal day in the Premier League if we didn't have an underdog winner. So I'm going to roll with my dog of the day, and it's going to be in the Fulham and the Crystal Palace game. Fulham and Crystal Palace are separated by just 5 places and 9 points at this stage in the season. Both teams concede around 33 to 32 goals per game. Both teams have potential to score goals as well. Fulham are only 4 points off a final European slot, and they've been playing really well recently, like they're worthy of that spot. Winning 4 of the last 5 games. They've only lost 2 in the last 10, and they've lost only 4 in the last 20. That's certainly some good form. All games have been close. Only 4 wins being by 2 or more goals. As for Palace on the other side, their recent form has also picked up. Similarly to Fulham, they've lost just 2 of the last 10 games and 5 of the last 20. Palace have been able to keep the majority of games close, only 2 losses being by 2 or more goals. They were to Arsenal and Fulham in this reverse fixture almost about 3 months ago. In fact, Palace were really close to having a 10-game unbeaten streak, but in both losses against Everton and Brentford, took late goals and handed them their losses. So those 2 games had goals after 80 minutes, and obviously then there wasn't much time to sort of come back in that game as well to snatch another point. Palace have been able to score in all but 2 of their last 20 games, and Fulham have conceded in 17 of the last 20 games, meaning there's an opportunity for Palace to fight for a win in this game. I believe the best bet in this game is to back Palace to win or draw as a double chance bet, or if you can get Asian lines on your sportsbook, then take Palace plus 0.5 at slightly nicer odds. So the dog of the day for this one's going to be Crystal Palace. I managed to take plus 0.5 on the Asian handicap at minus 115. You can get Palace draw or win as the double chance, and that's the thing, that's about minus 120, so a little bit worse odds, virtually the same bet. So Palace is my dog of the day. We're going to head over into Sunday. We've got 2 games on the Sunday. And all 4 teams playing on Sunday are fighting for something in the top of the league. So we're going to start off in the early kickoff, and it's going to be Newcastle and Nottingham Forest. 2 teams battling for a Champions League place next season. Nottingham Forest sitting in 3rd, Newcastle down in 7th. Just 6 points separates the 2 teams in the standings, but both teams have been really fine form, and more recently too, with both teams winning 3, losing 2 in the last 5 games. Both teams winning a further 4 games in the last 10, meaning both teams have 7 wins from the last 10. So there's really nothing much to separate the 2 teams. Both capable of scoring goals. Forest scoring 41, Newcastle scoring 42. Both solid on defence. Forest allowed just 29 and Newcastle 33. So they're really good offensively and defensively. There's nothing much to separate these 2 teams. And like I said, only a few places, 6 points separate the 2 teams in the standings. Both teams, they have a top goal scorer in the top 4 of the league. Chris Wood for Forest scoring 18 with 2 assists, and Alexander Isak for Newcastle scoring 17 and 5 assists. I believe this game could literally come down, and it could depend on either one of these 2 to secure points in this matchup for their teams. These 2 teams faced in November, with the score being 3-1 in Newcastle's favour. Isak proving to be the huge dominator in that game. He scored and assisted in that game. I think a similar outcome could happen in this game in terms of both teams being able to score goals. Both teams to score has hit in 60% of Newcastle's last 10. Over 2.5 goals is hitting 80%, and for both combined, it's 60% overall too. And as for Forest, both teams to score is hitting only 40%, but over 2.5 in 60. So betting both teams to score seems to be the riskiest side of the bet. Obviously, both defensively can be very, very good, meaning the over 2.5 seems a little more risk free. Over 2.5 seems to be the best bet of the game, in my opinion. Even if both teams do score, which they are fully capable of doing, that'll only improve our chances of hitting the over 2.5 goals. So I'm going to roll with Newcastle and Forest over 2.5 goals. That's slightly juiced, minus 147. But I like it enough to be able to hit to take that chance. Heading over to the second game on Sunday, the second and final game of the game week, Liverpool and Man City. Highly anticipated matchup between two teams. They've both been battling for the Premier League title in the last few years, basically been head-to-head against each other as well. Liverpool currently sit top of the league, 3 places above Man City, who've had a rough time this season. Liverpool, however, they've enjoyed a nice campaign. They've lost just 1 game all season. They've scored 60 goals along the way. A huge contributor to Liverpool's success this season has been Mo Salah. Salah currently leads the Golden Boot race with 24 goals. He's added another 15 assists as well, meaning he's got 39 goal contributions in 26 games. Liverpool average 2.4 goals per game, and Salah averages 1.4 goal contributions per game. So every 2 goals, more than likely, one of those has come from Salah, either him scoring himself or assisting. He's a class of his own right now. He's the favourite for the Ballon d'Or, and it's obviously easy to see why. He's fired a blank in only 4 games this season. Man City's defence hasn't looked good all year either. They've conceded 35 goals in 25 Prem games this year, more recently conceding 17 in the last 10 games. Home or away doesn't really matter in this matchup for me either. Salah has contributed to 6 goals in his last 3 away games, and 25 total contributions away from home as well. Mo Salah, he's seen Man City numerous times over his career. He's been able to dominate whenever he's faced them. He's got 5 goal contributions in the last 5 meetings. He's got 20 goal contributions in 20 games against Man City for Liverpool as well. I expect Liverpool to keep their foot on the gas in this game. I think they are in prime position to win this game, and that'll obviously further help solidify themselves at the top of this Premier League table. And I think Salah's current form is going to be a huge factor in this game. And I think the best bet in the game is Salah to score or assist, and you can get that at minus 125. I've actually got this as my star bet of the day as well, which is normally tended to be a 2-unit play, but because it's the first episode of the podcast, I'm going to do everything as 1 unit. So take that with a pinch of salt. But I'm really, really liking Salah to score or assist in this game. So moving on from football, we're going to go over to some boxing. Obviously, being from the UK, boxing's huge over here. And we've got a huge boxing card this weekend. 8 title fights. Well, there was 8 title fights. We've had a few people drop out. But that still means we've got a lot of quality boxing this weekend. I've taken my time this week looking into these fights and only picked the outcomes I'm most comfortable in taking. And I'm actually going to start with a fight towards the end of the night between Ortiz Jr. and Madrimov. But before I get into that as well, I do have a heavy lean in the Zhang and Kabayel fight. Unfortunately, in my opinion, it's way too juiced, and I won't be taking a straight wager on that bet, but it will be in the weekend-long parlay, so keep listening for that in case you'd like to use that in a parlay of your own, or obviously simply stick to my weekend-long parlay as well. So we'll get into the Ortiz Jr. and Madrimov fight. Madrimov moves into this fight only having 9 professional fights despite being 31 years old. Although he's only had 9 fights, he earned himself a title shot against Terence Crawford, which he lost. Despite losing, he fought very well in that game, and he was unfortunate not to get a result, actually. But obviously that has improved his stock heading into this fight. As for Ortiz Jr., he's totaled 22 pro fights. He's won 21 by knockout. The most recent fight against the number 6th ranked Bahayuk is his only fight and his only win to go the distance. I think the experience of the 26-year-old Ortiz will play a huge part in this fight, despite being 5 years younger. He's had almost triple the pro fights as well. He clearly possesses a knockout power punch with obviously 21 knockouts in 22 fights, and I think he will prove to be a little bit too much for Madrimov, even though he is a very, very exciting talent as well. It's going to be a very close fight, but I'm going to lean towards Ortiz Jr. money line. That's going to be odds of minus 120. The next fight I had penciled in was Parker against Dubois. It is the penultimate fight of the card, and it was supposed to be against, between Dubois and Parker, as I said, but Dubois bailed. He's got illness, and now Parker will face Bivol. I had a huge piece ready to go on how I believed Parker would beat Dubois as a big underdog. And obviously now that's all pretty irrelevant considering he's not even facing Dubois. So we'll roll with what we've got. Parker's fought 5 times since the start of 2023. So we've had a lot of fights in the past 2 years. He's won all 5. He's a seasoned veteran. He's won 35 of 38 total fights. He's won 21 by knockout, showcasing he does have that knockout ability, but he can also go the distance. His most recent wins, and probably his most notable wins to date, were victories against former heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder, and he had a knockout win against the current 10-ranked Zhang in the 5th round. Parker's fought the majority of the big names in the heavyweight division over the years. Bivol is the number 5th ranked heavyweight, so he's still going to be a tough task for Parker to navigate. He's a few places higher ranked than Parker. Bivol is yet to face a top 10 ranked opponent. This is his first shot, and he's also yet to fight in a 12-round bout. So that's, again, another factor for going against Bivol, as Parker is a seasoned veteran. He's been fighting numerous years, majority of his career, 12 rounds, and he's got the stamina to go all the way as well. He is, however, used to stopping his opponents. He's got 4 KOs in his last 5 fights. He's had 5 fights since 2021 as well. So, obviously Parker's been a lot more active. He's had 5 fights since 2023. Bivol only had 5 fights since 2021. His 2 most recent wins from Parker being, hugely strategic wins. I'm going to back Parker to pull off another win against a last-minute step-in. The 5th ranked contender in this heavyweight division. Parker thrives the deeper the fight goes on, and the majority of wins have been later than 5 rounds. So he can get this done by knockout. He can get this done during the distance. But I do believe, I believed he was going to beat Dubois anyway. I believe he beats Bivol in this one. A little bit juiced now. He was a huge underdog. He was a plus 200 underdog. Now he's a minus 200 favourite. But I managed to snipe this. Parker money line, minus 147. And the final fight of the card is obviously the huge main event headline fight for this light heavyweight division. It's for all the belts, currently held by Beterbiev, and it's Beterbiev versus Bivol 2. Obviously, Beterbiev won the last fight they had in October. This is the rematch. Bivol would look to bounce back from a loss in the same fight a few months back. Bivol is a slow-paced fighter. He thrives in extending fights. He's won 11 by decision. 9 of his last 10 fights have gone to the judges' scorecards. He's only faced 1 fighter inside the top 10, and he's the current champion and the owner of Bivol's only career loss, and that's obviously Beterbiev. Beterbiev is a fighter on the opposite side and the end of the spectrum to Bivol. He's got 21 wins and 20 being by knockout. Obviously, the only one that wasn't by knockout was the fight against Bivol a few months ago. Stamina shouldn't be a problem for either fighter in this one. Majority of their fights go into the later rounds of each bout. Unlike Bivol, Beterbiev has faced more experienced and higher ranked opponents. He's faced number 2, Bivol, number 6, Callum Smith, number 10, Yarde, and number 9, Gvozduk. I'm going to assume that's how you say his name. This will be a close fight, as the last fight was. But I believe Beterbiev has more quality fights. He's more prepared, and I think that'll set him up with better preparation in this fight. And obviously, he's the current title holder. I expect him to be able to keep those belts. So I'm going to go with Beterbiev money line at odds of minus 115. And sticking with the fighting, UFC Seattle is this weekend. Again, similar to the boxing, a few injuries moved fights around, some late additions, some scratches from the card, made it a very hard one to break down. I've decided to keep the UFC card at a minimal this week. I'm going to give one winner, and that's going to be a part of my weekend-long parlay towards the end of the episode. So again, listen all the way to the end for the weekend-long parlay, and I'll get you some UFC action in that one as well. So that's all for the fighting for now.
Esports.
Okay, we're going to dive into some esports. I know probably a lot of you haven't bet on esports before. More particularly, I like to focus in the CDL, which is the Call of Duty League. So I bet this quite a lot. I play this quite a lot. I'm very knowledgeable in this area due to playing and watching it quite often. So anyone that's interested in esports or CDL in particular will know that this season's been very tough to go on so far this year. Headed a little bit of a background, obviously. Headed into the season, the so-called Big Three were Atlanta FaZe, Optic Texas, and the LA Thieves. So you will hear me talk about them a lot throughout this season. A few teams on the brink of cracking the top half of the league as well. Some teams playing obviously better now. Some teams played better towards the beginning of the season. But in terms of those Big Three, it translated as the season started. Optic obviously won last year's champs, so they are the champions currently. But this year, Optic and LA Thieves ranked in the top 3 in Major 1 qualifiers. And actually FaZe won Minor 1 and then Major 1 as well, with their opponents being LA Thieves. So obviously Optic, FaZe and Thieves, top of the game through Minor 1, Major 1. And obviously FaZe won back-to-back Minor 1 and Major 1 as well. But now we're into the final weekend of the qualifying for the Minor 2. LA Thieves currently sit top of the standings with FaZe a few spots down. But actually, unexpectedly, Optic are dead last. A lot of teams have overperformed and underperformed. One of those teams underperforming at the moment is Optic Texas. That makes this a lot harder to predict, and a lot of things on the line for most teams this week as they're fighting for a winner's bracket slot. So we haven't got much on this weekend, mainly because the majority of teams I would like to bet have already clinched a place, so they don't have much to play on. So they will sort of tend to go for map rotations and stuff. Basically, practice on the maps they're not as good at. So the first game I'm going to go with is on Saturday, and that's going to be between the Carolina Royal Ravens and against Optic Texas. So the Carolina Royal Ravens, they finished last season very, very well. They built their team around last year's Rookie of the Year, Gwyn. They picked up a former FaZe player, Slasher, and also a former Optic player, TJ, and they've both been very solid additions for the Ravens this year. They managed to finish in the top 4 in Minor 1, but their form has dipped slightly since losing 3 straight games heading into this weekend. And of those 3 games, they've won just 2 maps. Optic are also in a similar slump. They need to win their next 2 games to have a chance to make winners. It's very, very slim margins, though. They are looking like they're going to be in the losers bracket. Optic also lost 3 straight heading into this weekend. They won just 1 map. In fact, in the last 60 days, the only game mode Optic have been relatively good at has been Hardpoint, which they have a 52% win percentage on, compared to the Ravens' 29%. So in terms of the percentages there, Optic should win map 1. Aside from that, Optic have really struggled, and the Ravens have been a lot better. The Ravens have at least a 50% record on all maps in search. They win 61%, where Optic are dead even at 50%. In control, which is map 3, the Ravens again lead 53% to Optic's 45%. So there is slim margins between the 2 teams, but a few weeks back, these 2 teams did face, and Optic won map 1, but it was just by 2 points before the Ravens won the next 3 maps to win 3-1. I believe this is going to be a similar story again when they face in Minor 1. Optic win map 1 hardpoint, like I said, and the Ravens doing what it takes to win 3-2 eventually. I fully expect the Optic boys to bounce back at some point, But a roster change with Pred coming back in for Hook didn't do much good in the last 2 games. They lost both 3-0. I believe the Ravens will figure out their recent slump and get back into winning ways with a lot of confidence facing a struggling Optic team. I believe they can win outright in this game. I believe they can win a search and at least one respawn. That is very, very doable considering they have better records on search and control than Optic. So if they can snatch a map 1 hardpoint, they could win this 3-1, maybe even 3-0. But I'm going to take a huge chance on this one. It's a bit of an underdog. I'm going to go Carolina Royal Ravens money line at odds of plus 120. I'm going to go straight into the next one, and this is going to be a team that are on the up and up at the moment. As mentioned before, teams overperforming and underperforming. This is a team that has definitely overperformed in terms of their predictions preseason. So Minnesota Rocker, they have been very, very good in recent games. They've won 4 of the last 5 games headed into this weekend. They are currently playing right now. So obviously bear in mind this recap is going to be without that game. But yeah, they've covered a minus 1.5 handicap, which means they've won by 2 or more maps in all 4 wins in the last 5 games. They've had a tough game on Friday against the Royal Ravens, which is happening right now, but they face the worst team in the league in the Falcons. A win here is looking very, very likely, which obviously not including the game they're playing right now. Rocker have a 52% win percentage on hardpoint, 58% on search, and 54% on control. So they're over 0.500 in all 3 categories. But again, another good thing for them is the Falcons haven't won a single hardpoint all season. They're currently 0-18, and they've only won 1 map of control. They are, however, nearing 50% on search and destroy. But it's going to be a very tough ask to beat Rocker in their current form, and an impressive win seems the most likely outcome. So I've actually penciled in Rocker 3-0, but I'm not making that the official bet. The official bet is going to be one of their players. So Nero, he's been a key and crucial contributor for Rocker this season. He gives Minnesota the best opportunity to win games this year. Currently second in Slayer rating. He's first in hardpoint kills with 27 on average. He's also first in control kills with 23 on average. Over the last 5 games, he's been a top 3 player in the league, averaging 72 kills between maps 1 and 3. He's cleared 62 in all 5 games. The game is set up for Nero to take over, help solidify the Rockers' winners bracket place. Player kill markets aren't widely available as far as I know. In the UK, you can only get them on a few select sites, one of them being Bet365. Maybe a few other places if you dive into it a little bit more. I know Virgin Bet has it as well. If you're in the US, you may be able to find them again on sites like Bet365 if you have it available. FanDuel may have it if you have a little look around, but I know it is on Prize Picks. So if you do Prize Picks, make this one of your squares. Nero over 61.5 kills between maps 1 and 3. I got that at minus 120.
Elite Wagers Weekend Parlay.
So there goes all my official bets for the first podcast episode of Sports Talk with Elite Wagers. But a main feature I would like to make for this podcast, obviously in the next coming weeks, I will be doing a lot more fantasy as well, whether that's fantasy football, fantasy basketball, baseball, anything fantasy. I do have an announcement about that for next week. But a main feature I'm gonna be making is a weekend long parlay. I do these personally every week anyway, and it's a little bit of fun that I like to do. It takes me across the whole weekend. I normally tend to have 5 selections from 5 different sports across sort of Friday to maybe Monday. Gives me something to tail all weekend long. If you have those weekends where you're free, you can just sit down and watch a load of sports. And obviously, like I said before, hopefully I can give you some insights on some new sports, get you watching some new sports and get you interested in things like that. And hopefully you tail this weekend long parlay as well. So getting into the selections for the weekend long parlay, like I said, 5 selections, 5 different sports from across the weekend. I will try and do it in sort of time order. I don't think I've got it in time order yet. But the first one is going to be in the boxing. And it's going to be in the Zhang and Kabyle fight. Like I said before, I have a heavy lean, a little bit juice to take straight, but I'm going to put this in the parlay. It's going to be fight not to go the distance. And the reasoning for this bet is either one of these two fighters could stop this fight at any point. Zhang has 22 knockouts in 27 fights. Kabyle has 17 knockouts in 25 fights. Kabyle has now won 4 fights on the bounce by knockout, with his highest round reaching in those 4 being 8. 14 of Zhang's last 15 wins have ended in a knockout, all of which have come inside the first half of the fight. These wins include 2 knockout wins against Joe Joyce and a knockout win against Wilder in his last fight. I think this is a huge opportunity for Kabyle to get a victory and prove he's a contender in this division. Zhang should be preparing for this fight. He should know that the only way to win this fight will be a knockout. He tends to tire relatively fast. He's obviously a big guy. I expect him to burn himself out in his attempt to stop Kabyle early in this fight. Like I said, he's had the majority of those knockouts in the first half of the fight. But if he doesn't succeed, I expect Kabyle to take advantage of a large, motionless target that will be Zhang. When he gets tired, he doesn't tend to move his feet. And obviously, if his guard drops, there's a huge target for Kabyle. I don't believe this fight goes to the judges' scorecards. So the first selection is Zhang and Kabyle fight not to go the distance. The second leg is going to be in some football. It's going to be in the La Liga, and it's going to be Barcelona moneyline. Barcelona, they'll have a full week's rest to prepare for this matchup, similar to the Premier League I mentioned before. Only a few select teams are in the Champions League, so Barcelona have had a full week off, a full week to prepare for this matchup. They sit in first place, while Las Palmas are down in 17th. They are tied on points with Valencia in the relegation zone. Barcelona have won 10 of the last 12 matches, including 7 of those being by 2 or more goals. Las Palmas are on a 7-game winless streak. They lost 5, drew 2. Las Palmas actually won the reverse fixture a few months ago, but both teams' recent form suggests that this game goes in the way of Barcelona. They're tied on points in first place with Real Madrid, so they do need to make these matchups stick for themselves to continue to lead this league. So I'm going to go with Barcelona money line against a really struggling team in the relegation zone. The next leg for this parlay is it's going to be in that same esports matchup in the CDL, Call of Duty League, Optic against Ravens. As I mentioned in the breakdown for the Ravens moneyline pick, between these two teams, I expect Optic to improve on their most recent 2 3-0 losses. On their day, they are actually one of the best teams in the league. They're capable of beating any team that they face. The Ravens have dropped off a little in recent weeks, but they tend to play a lot better against the so-called Big Three. In the last 5 games, they've played against the Big Three teams, who are FaZe, Optic, and Thieves. They've won 3, and 4 of those 5 games have seen 4 or more maps. On their year, the Ravens have hit over 3.5 maps in 14 games from 17, including 2 out of 2 against Optic. And as for Optic, they've hit over 3.5 maps in 11 of 15 games. So the bet for this one is going to be Optic and Ravens over 3.5 maps. The fourth selection is we're going over to some hockey. Obviously, there was a big layoff in the hockey last week. Obviously, internationals for the Four Nations little mini tournament. But we get a full slate on a Saturday. Unfortunately for me, my book didn't have NHL lines out until this morning, so I wasn't able to have a full insight on the NHL. But I took the time to look in and pick a winner for the parlay. The Panthers are currently sitting as the 2nd seed in the East. They're in a solid bit of form right now as well. In the last 10 games, they've won 7, all 3 losses coming against playoff teams. They'll now face Seattle Kraken, who are ranked 13th in the West. They are 5th from bottom overall. Seattle have a 4-6 record in the last 10 games, but they've struggled to beat teams ranked higher than themselves. 3 of the last 4 wins they've had have been against the Sharks, who are dead last, Penguins, who are the 8th worst, and the Sabres, who are 4th worst. this should be a tough game for the Kraken, and the Panthers should grab a comfortable win in this one. So it's fairly simple as that. Panthers money line, and the final selection for this is Allen and Hernandez over 1.5 rounds in the UFC Seattle card. These two fighters are ranked 9 and 10 in this contest. Both fighters are comfortable fighting from the ground. As we know, trying to set up a submission finish can take a lot of time. Allen has 14 submission finishes in his career, and Hernandez has 8. Hernandez is riding a 6-fight win streak, all 5 of those being inside the distance, but all seeing the late stages of the second round. I expect Hernandez to set the pace, try to attack the ground game of Allen. Allen, who's fairly good in that area too, can cause problems. Both fighters being able to take fights to the ground, run down the clock, fighting for ground position. Both well over 55% in takedown defense as well. So, when they're scrambling and things like that on the floor, both defense is pretty solid, so it can take more time while they're trying to get that position for a choke or some sort of submission. I expect this fight to go over 1.5 rounds. Allen has surpassed 1.5 rounds in 11 UFC fights, and Hernandez has seen over 1.5 rounds hit in all but one UFC fight. So that's in 8 of 9. So again, I'll run down the parlay. The parlay is going to be Zhang and Kabyle fight not to go the distance, Barcelona moneyline, Optic and Ravens over 3.5 maps in the CDL, Panthers moneyline in the NHL, and Allen and Hernandez over 1.5 rounds, and that's going to get you plus 350. So again, small stakes on this one. No putting your whole house on it or anything like that. It's just a little bit of fun to tail over the course of the weekend. It gets you involved into some new sports. And let's have fun with it, and let's not kill the bankroll or anything like that. Small stakes only, gamble responsibly on that one. So I'll break down the full card, and then we'll sign off for this episode. So the full betting card this week, starting with the soccer picks. Bournemouth moneyline and over 1.5 goals at odds of minus 115. Crystal Palace plus 0.5 handicap or double chance at minus 115. Forest and Newcastle over 2.5 goals, minus 147. Salah score or assist, minus 125. Into the boxing, we've got Ortiz Jr. moneyline, minus 120. Parker moneyline, minus 147. Beterbiev moneyline, minus 115. In the esports and the CDL, the Carolina Royal Ravens moneyline against Optic, plus 120. And we've got Nero over 61.5 kills against the Falcons at minus 120. And then obviously we've got the weekend-long parlay as well. So hopefully you all enjoyed the episode. Hopefully I gave you a good insight into some sports that maybe you wouldn't normally bet on, or you wouldn't normally come to me to listen to. So hopefully I can see you again next week, and we'll keep this rolling again. Next week's going to be a big one. I got 2 big announcements for next week's episode. We've got a special guest coming, and I got an announcement on fantasy as well. So stay tuned. If you could all be so kind and head over to all my my other social medias, so please take the time to click the Linktree link in the description below. Like and subscribe to me on all socials. It's 100% free. That helped me grow. That helped me reach a bigger audience, and that helped me help more people win money. Share, like, subscribe, share. This is available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Substack, Discord, everywhere and anywhere. So please like, subscribe, share, and hopefully I'll see you again next week. I'm going to sign off. Good luck with everyone's bets this weekend, and I'll see you later.